Hey guys, we are back. This is episode 7, lucky number 7, right? It's Stephen. Welcome. Hope you're doing fantastic.
Thank you.
And
I am. Thank you.
great. Microphone sounds terrific. So we do a little, again, we talk about this all the time. We do extensive planning right before the show, but part of it was just to make sure, as we go episode to episode, how does the sound, right? It's important. How are the visuals coming across? Can't help this, but at least as far as what we're posting on YouTube. And again, we want to do what we can just to make this a lively, fun environment for you guys to enjoy.
Heck yeah.
And
Yep.
I wanted just to really quick, Stephen, if I may. So if you've been out to YouTube and you are following the Talking Show, perfect. Thank you.
Absolutely.
There's been countries, plural countries tuning in. Let me just run through these really quick. United States, that's where we broadcast from. United Kingdom, Canada,
Nice.
Australia,
Wow.
Germany, Netherlands, Sweden, Italy, Russia, Finland, France, Ireland, Poland, Greece, New Zealand, Spain,
Oh,
Czechia, Czechia. I know of Czechoslovakia, and so they've changed names. Maybe they just cut it down to Czechia, if I'm
maybe.
saying that properly. And if you're watching this, Czechia, I'm hopefully saying it properly, but please let me know. Indonesia,
Wow.
Japan, and 21, I believe.
Cool.
So again, that's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, all you countries, for checking us out.
That's phenomenal. And again,
Yeah.
we've been putting out content each week for the show, I guess. Yeah. For some reason, I had to think about what we're doing here, right? But yeah. Anyway, so that's cool. It's much appreciated. You can also find us on Instagram and Spotify. That's where
Right.
we post the full audio versions,
The full
episodes
gamut.
every week. They come out Monday morning, so you can have it for your drive into work or for your morning coffee. So again, here we are. So,
Or if you're in another country, it might be driving home from work.
it could be dinner time, midnight snack, drive home, drive into lunch.
Right.
And yeah, that's true. It's all over the place.
Very cool.
So now that you've tuned in, thank you again for a couple weeks. You are probably wondering one of two things. One, what the hell am I doing wasting my time? Or maybe there's something of interest that you've been able to garner from these last few weeks. Again, from a musical standpoint, Stephen plays drums and I sing, and there's the sticks. Microphone somewhere here, just there, microphone. But we're going to take this episode and probably the next one and just talk about how we got to where we're at from a musical standpoint. And we talked about this on episode 1. We're not rock stars, we're not big timers in music. I think we're big timers just in life, right? I think we've definitely won in that regard, but any number of events could have occurred over the years. And I think Stephen just fell off the
Sorry, I'm having a little bit.
Yeah.
Keep going. I'm having technical difficulties.
There he is. He's back. Yeah.
Sorry.
But we were going to share with you, and I'll start first with what was our musical journey. And again, I'm just going to jump right in. I'm going to go first. Stephen's going to join in. Feel free, obviously, just to, jump in, Stephen, where you want to, and maybe do a little interaction here with what we're talking about.
Without a doubt.
So I figured I start with, if you think of the intro to a story, the middle, the arc, and then the crescendo somewhere in there. If things can be, and pretty much it takes us to current day. I remember way back when it kind of starts with I couldn't walk and I couldn't talk. Now, I was beyond the age that one would be able to walk and talk. And if you know me now or you're listening to this, I've certainly been able to develop the talking angle. Walking, I think I can do that fine. I don't like running, just in case you guys are filling out a scorecard. I'm not a runner. I've never been a fan of running. And who knows, I remember back in the old football days and other sporting events or sporting activities. Let me tell you, it was an event.
Bad for your knees, anyhow.
Yeah, it that was the last thing that was of any interest. So who knows if it all stemmed from, in my earliest memories. And I could ask my mom still if this happened, can't ask my dad this, but what was going on with these braces that they put on my legs? And they had these like black leather shoes, mind you, this is like 70, 72, 73, 74. And I think I remember this, and maybe this is kind of, if you listen to some of the other stories where I didn't think I was like a bad kid, but maybe I did some bad things, showing up late to work, not going home at night. My parents showing up the next day in the black Cadillac. So maybe they deserved what I did at the early age, or maybe what happened to me in life was apropos. But I remember, and I won't stay on this topic forever, but just picture these metal.
Forrest Gump.
Yeah, kind of. It was something like, it was the strangest thing. I have memories, at least I think I do. In my head, it's some sort of memory of me unscrewing these.
Wow.
And then throwing them out of and it was a crib at the time. So if I was 3 in a crib, then maybe I had bigger issues. So I clearly was much younger. And then when I got into a bed, but that was like my first memory of not wanting to be like tied down or kind of construct a word. So company is the word for this evening. And can I just get it out now? Udo Dirkschneider. That way we have Udo being mentioned in every show.
I actually, real quick, I used to think his name was Udo Dickerschneider. So go figure.
Well, I think there was an Udo Dickerschneider that did movies. That's very possible. So, for a future episode.
German, we'll keep it at that.
Yes. Yeah. So I wasn't talking.
Again, that's wild.
Try to believe that. So I remember I found these tapes, and it was this speech therapy. And say I wasn't journaling when I was a little kid again, at this point, I've come to the conclusion that I just didn't have anything to say. I needed, maybe there's a number of words someone has in a lifetime, and I was just saving them up for the latter years. Who knows? And maybe that's what then, gave me a reason to, hey, let's try singing. I haven't sung before. I never talked before. So somewhere it was like a year, maybe 2 of going through just different sessions. And I remember meeting with like doctors, and maybe it was more a matter of, I don't think there was any drugs involved. I think it was interest, though just 2 years prior to being introduced, and we talked about this before, to Black Sabbath and Van Halen, which to me at that point just kind of sunk in and said, all right, there's something here. There's something I need to kind of invest my time in. And a interesting fact, number 3, I guess, with Scott in my youth, in 79, here's this kid with leg braces for whatever reason. Obviously I needed them. To not talking, to now being in front of, who knows, it could have been Hollywood Elite. I don't remember. I have to look back and see who were the casting directors during that time. This was 79. And I did that. I do remember I was kind of shy, not surprising. And I still think it's kind of remarkable. So how the hell did my parents even think of doing this, right?
Right.
So
yeah.
it was interesting.
How does that happen?
Yeah. My dad, Ricky Schroeder, after this movie, he went on and did oh my God, what was that? Silver
Spoons.
Silver Spoons. Yeah.
Mhm.
We don't look anything alike. So I think ultimately they wanted to cast a blonde kid, and I don't have blonde hair. It's white now, but that's for different reasons. However, so that was kind of the first little intro to some type of show business, some type of activity where you can express yourself.
Interesting. Very cool.
So 2 years later, and I won't rehash this whole story, but walking by my brother's room, and kind of full disclosure, we were only 3 years apart, but it might as well have been 3,000 years apart. There was just nothing we had in common, or so I thought. And it was this.
Sounds like my brother.
Yeah, and it's certainly not a unique situation, right? Family, can be tough, and you don't pick your family, right? So you just and my parents were fantastic, but from a brother perspective, there just wasn't any real connection, except for this time, and this probably really was the one and only time. 81, walking by his room. Wait a second, that sounds kind of cool. It was Van Halen and
Which
Unchained.
Van Halen?
Yeah.
Oh,
And Fair Warning. And then I quickly went back and caught up to Van Halen very quickly over the next
so
few
how
weeks.
how old were you in 81?
I was 11.
Okay.
Yeah. Same year, Black Sabbath and Mob Rules. So my first introduction, the second record, which, what was it? Yesterday was the anniversary of Heaven and Hell. So those came out 80, 81. And that was great. Back then, bands were putting out records, some of them like every year. And on the far reaches, it was 2 to 3 years. Now you got to wait, 5 years. Some bands take 10 years. Some bands, who knows? But so you got a lot of music in a short amount of time, and there was a lot of music going on. And just before we started, now, Stephen, you were talking about bands in 82 that started, like Wasp and many others, Warlock. Kind of cool. So there was a lot of, and you kind of had to seek out and find the music. So that's what I think made it even more special. You had to go to record stores, right?
Yeah. Oh, and real quick, let me interject. In 1981, newly formed bands: Anthrax, Dark Angel, Icon, Loudness, Merciful Fate, Metallica, Motley Crue, Pantera, Slayer. And that's really the only ones, other than the ones I don't recognize. But that's a huge influence that still drives today.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's phenomenal. All those started in 81.
Yeah.
That's
crazy.
Great. That's great. So in that, and again, the more, at least for me, the more formative years, 84, 85, 86, which we could probably dedicate an entire episode to talking about, those bands.
Yeah.
So, 11 years old, get introduced to a couple of those bands, and then I start kind of digging in a little bit more. There was, talking about going to the record store, but at least to some extent, one of the local stations, grew up in Southern California, was KMET 94.7.
OG.
And they played metal. I can't remember to what extent, but there was definitely a fair amount of hard rock and metal they played. Your Triumphs and different bands like that kind of gave me some more exposure just to a broader set. And then the aforementioned in past episodes, the Seventh Day, where there'd be 7 albums. And again,
Jim Ladd.
Jim Ladd. I would look forward to that, and I would record it on my boombox with my little TDK cassettes, which I still have in a closet, kind of lined up. So maybe, and I went and found a Walkman. It's kind of one of those things where, you have one when you're a little kid and you just like take it for granted. And then, you kind of beat it up a little bit and it breaks. A couple of years ago, before we moved out to the South, not that they don't sell these in the South, but I remember going through like a CVS, and right there in the bottom shelf was a like Casio Walkman. And at this point, it probably was like $35.99, but I got to get that because I have all these cassettes that I can't listen to. So let me go ahead and just grab that. So I did. And I kept a fair amount of cassettes back from that day. And I haven't flipped through them in a while. You know, I remember seeing Queensryche and there's some Slayer and there's some Iron Maiden and a whole bunch of, again, just my own mixtapes. So I'll have to revisit those sometimes too. But in that, you know, taking me into 81, 82, 83, 84, probably around 85. Had some buddies in the neighborhood. So one of them was Eric, who was an aspiring drummer. And another one was KP, Kevin Paul.
Oh,
So
wow.
he and I met each other in 83, I think. And real quick fun story, because it kind of is funny where it takes you decades later. I remember on my first introduction to Kevin, and I always remember him. He looked like Randy Rhoads when he was, you know, I was gonna say a little kid, when he was a kid. He had super long hair even back then, and he rode around on like this dirt bike. And there was a liquor store, because where else do you go as a 13, 14-year-old but the liquor store? Play
And
the
to
video
get a pack of
games.
Marlboro Reds.
Absolutely, yeah. So not Dungeons and Dragons, Dragon's Lair, that's it.
Yeah.
So, you know, that was one video game that you eventually in time, there was like the older kid, the 17-year-old that knew all the tips and tricks, right? You gotta go left, right, up, down, and you can kind of go through it. But I remember I would put some quarters up there like you always did to save your spot.
Yeah, you're next.
Yeah. And I go to play, and I think Kevin, I didn't know who he was then, but he either went to grab the quarters or whatever. But I remember looking at him, and my first words to KP were, "You do that again, and I'll kick your ass." And later in life, there was this in a work setting, there was a guy that met me at a conference and said the same thing. So I laughed at that moment. I go, well, good. There's kind of bookends on that same. But yeah, that was my introduction to Kevin at the time, and we hit it off. And he was already playing guitar. He was probably playing guitar since he was, you know, 10 or maybe younger than that. And he was the shredder. He noodled back then for sure. But
I can only imagine.
yeah, but you know, he had the guitars. He actually still has that same guitar. He has one of them that he still has.
That's cool.
But there was a common interest. He had the Randy Rhoads poster in his bedroom. He lived right down the street. He lived next door to a couple of members of Leatherwolf.
Wow.
So yeah, so they would always drive down the street in their pickup truck going to a gig, and they all had it was really hilarious. It was the drummer. But they would be driving down the street. It seemed like 50 miles an hour on a little, you know, residential street, all piled in this little truck with all their gear hanging out the back, completely like not safe at all. But they were going after their show, and they would later, you know, become one of the, you know, they never reached it big time, but as far as just I'll cut that out.
Thank God for editing.
Yeah, where's my butt? But anyway, they went on to be, you know, somewhat successful. They're still around now, and the only member is the drummer, and they're just not very good. Like the classic lineup is all not there except for the drummer, but it's
like Foghat. The only member is the drummer.
Yeah. So in that, you know, Kevin and I met, and in grade school we had this buddy, Eric. So he was into metal. He might have been how I got into Slayer. He definitely was talk about Merciful Fate coming live in 81. He was big into that, and he was almost over the top with, you know, he was the first to get cut that again. That's awesome. This is perfect.
It's all good. It's Ron and now is good.
Yeah. Anyway, so we met up and we started just playing around. Who knows what songs? There is a tape somewhere, and I need to dig it up. And I forget the name we were using. It was something, you know, like the Devil's Teacup or something random. And it was fitting as an aspiring young metal band. My mom worked at a church, so she would drive us because we needed somewhere to rehearse. I guess we could have done it in the garage, but for whatever reason, that didn't happen. So we would rehearse in this like multi-purpose room next to the church, St. Isidore's in Los Alamitos. So we'd go there, once or twice a week, and that never amounted to anything. And who knows what, if anything, it sounded like. But at that point, I'm going to pause again. So my light died, which I'm okay. There's enough light. And
my mic stand came off my stand. That's why it's like it's moving because
we should just leave it just like this. We won't cut anything out at all.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like yeah. I'm going to let's end this and start the other link since it's just about up. So I'll see you back in a minute.
Give me a few. I got to retighten all this crap up. So
yeah. All right.
See you in 5.
All right. Bye.
Cheers.